Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Below the 38 Football and Adventures in South Korea. This is the weekend that was our review of K-League 1, K-League 2 for weekend 2. My name is Andrew, and I'm delighted to say that Luke and Mike are back with me again to go over what was another very eventful weekend in Korean football. Hello, gentlemen. How are you guys getting on?
How are you doing,
Yeah,
Andrew?
good, thanks.
Mike might have a good bit of talking to today just simply because he tired himself out by going to a bunch of games, whereas Luke was pampering himself in the Lotte World Tower instead. That might be on a special podcast at some point in the future. But head on over to our YouTube channel, which I presume you're watching this anyway, and you'll see videos that Mike put up from Bucheon and Ansan, is that correct?
Indeed, yeah.
And I put up a couple of videos from Anyang. So that's 3 matches that we covered on the site this weekend. So if you're interested in see what we've been getting up to over the weekend, please do. Don't be worried though, if you're a big fan of Luke, he will be back at a football stadium near you this weekend, and he will let us know about that later on. It's going to be a surprise until then. So Below the 38, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, and of course this is our YouTube channel. We're struggling at the moment to get everything. We're doing our best, but give us some time and we're going to be like absolute pros around here. Don't worry about that. Before we talk about the weekend's action, though, look, I know Luke has definitely been quite vociferous about this on Twitter down the years. I'm not sure about yourself, Mike, but I was talking to somebody from Anyang over the winter, and they were saying the move to winter football will happen. It's like it's inevitable. It's just when will it happen? And I was going through my Footballogy account recently, and the weekend that just went by is traditionally FA Cup action, and I would have been at matches myself at that time. And now, of course, the FA Cup is not on now. They've moved the FA Cup to a calendar that's similar to what football fans in Europe are used to, which is sort of September to May. K-League at the moment has resumed or maintained its February to early December, late November schedule. I'll start with you first, Luke. I think it's safe to say that none of us are fans of the idea of moving to a winter football league over here. If you had to think of some pros and cons of why we should do that or why we shouldn't do that, what exactly would you go for yourself?
Playing devil's advocate, I can see the benefit of avoiding Korean summertime. It's often 35 degrees, 100% humidity, and all of the kickoffs are 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., which means if you're an away fan going to a game, then finishing at 10:30 makes it very difficult to get back, particularly if it's a Sunday game. I think there's a lot of people who don't like the summer heat and they don't like the humidity. However, if you consider that we would again change to a winter schedule, the winter daytimes will be -5 or -10 with a wind chill. Kicking off in the daytime at least, but the problem is that the grass doesn't grow in winter. Pitches are bare, pitches are frozen, and there would be very little grass on the pitches. Fans are unlikely to turn out in the numbers that they do in summer for winter games when it is that cold. Particularly Incheon, where the wind really whips around the stadium, like northern games, Seoul, Suwon, Incheon, the crowds would really suffer. And I just think that I get why people would want to move away from summer. I get why people might want to match a European schedule. But playing in the winter, playing in December and January seems like a non-starter. We would need to have quite a long winter break, in which case I don't really know how it would fit in beyond K-League playing more midweek games and then shortening the length of the season. I don't know. It's interesting how they would try to do it, but I do think that it would be a bad idea, in my opinion.
Mike?
Well, as you just mentioned, the K-League's kicked off with sandy pitches because of the grass growing problem. So if we're playing in the middle of winter, it's going to really exacerbate that. And the major issue, Son Heung-min famously criticised the pitches here It's just going to be that, but much worse. So I think, if we're going to advise anyone to come to watch K-League, there is that golden period of, say, late April to early June or late September through October. Those are the nicest times to watch the K-League. But just going off what Luke said there, winter games are almost untenable completely, I think. I know we saw some Champions League in early December, and it was kind of bearable, but it wasn't. I mean, that was kind of a lucky day. For most days, it's going to be fairly grim, I think. And I think the summer is tough. It's not fantastic, but it's the lesser of the two evils in the sense of when to play the games.
Yeah, I go along with all that. There's nothing really to add to it. I mean, I hate waiting around all day for an 8 o'clock kickoff in the summer because you feel like there's not a huge amount that you can do because it's just lingering in the back of your mind that there's a match coming up that you have to be at later on. But I agree that it is significantly the lesser of the two evils. What I would like to say though is that since they seem to be doing their best not to bring in a winter league, and if it is inevitable, I'd like to think that they're probably just coming up with solutions at the moment. Like perhaps if there was just no football in December and January, and then no football in July and August, and almost had like a South American style apertura, clausura type season. I don't know what the effect that would be on player welfare, just condensing all those matches into 8 months of the season as opposed to over the course of maybe 9.5 to 10 months. I would much rather go and watch a game in the heat and the humidity of middle of July than go to watch any sort of outdoor sport in this country in January. I think it's a non-runner, despite all of the problems that exist with football in the summer. I think it's just way better, and you can kind of create an atmosphere around that. Like I was at Ulsan Munsu a few years ago when they're playing against Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. And like they're not the only club that does this, but it was cool when they were just spraying fans with massive hoses throughout the game. And it is done up and down the country. I had pretty good seats that day to avail of that. I don't know what the solution is in football winter football, because there's no domes, there's no indoor stadiums, there's no retractable roofing. Santa showing up is not going to help overcome the freezing conditions. So am I right in saying that we're all in agreement here that as it's not ideal, but we keep it the way it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, agree.
I mean, I was looking. One of the fixtures I was looking forward to this year was Jeju away. Having only been to Jeju once in all of my time in Korea, I was really excited to finally get to go to a Jeju game against Incheon, and we are playing in the middle of summer. Literally the vacation week, the 1 week everyone in Korea gets off. So flights to Jeju are like ridiculously expensive compared to other times of the year. It's also, I think, 7:30 kickoff. So by the time the game finishes, there are no flights back. And I even believe it's a Sunday night rather than a Saturday night. So it's just impossible. And that was one game I was looking forward to that I won't be going to.
Not ideal.
But again, it's better than going on the 11th of January.
Fully agree. Look, let's move on. K-League 1. There's only 4 matches this weekend, Luke, so your mini roundup is going to be nice and short. Anything stick out that you really want to mention from each of the 4 games?
Well, yeah, it was late drama across a couple of games. Sojin Soo scored for Daejeon, which was an equaliser after Bucheon had taken the lead. So that gave Daejeon another late point, and they finished 1-1. Gwangju won 3-2 against Incheon, with Mugosa missing a last-minute penalty in the 15th minute of injury time. And then Jeonbuk managed to draw 1-1 with Gimcheon, again with a last-minute equaliser, Bruno Motta with the goal. So Daejeon and Jeonbuk, the two teams who were everybody's picks for 1 and 2 in some order this year, are both struggling for a win so far. 3 goals after the 85th minute. So Anyang take the lead, concede, and then go on to win the game in injury time against Jeju. Mateus Oliveira got a double, and he's on fire
Yeah,
at the
he
minute.
is. What it means for the table then, like it is an unfamiliar look to K League One at the moment. Again, only like 4 teams have only played a single match. We have to consider that too. Nobody has won either of the first 2 matches, so there is a three-way tie at the top, featuring Bucheon FC, who are actually in first place because of the goals scored record counts so much over here. Gwangju, perhaps surprisingly, are joint first alongside Anyang. At the bottom, Incheon and Gangwon prop up the table on 0 point, as I was saying, in Eurovision, but Gangwon have only played just once, so plenty of time to fix all that for Incheon and for Gangwon and everybody else who's perhaps struggling so far this season. Mike, you want to give us a quick rundown on the fixtures, the table, anything that catches your eye in K League 2?
So already we're starting to see the K2 table take shape, because 3 of the favourites to go up, Suwon FC, Daegu FC and Suwon Blue Wings, all secured the second wins this weekend. But perhaps the biggest winners of the weekend were Busan, who went over to Ansan, as you can see behind me, and got a 3-1 win, which means they're also on 4 points and are now quite comfortably sat in the playoff places. But it's at the other end of the table where we've got that relegation jeopardy, and we've now got 3 teams, Paju, Gyeongnam and Gimhae, who have all now lost the 2 opening fixtures, so they're now looking squarely at that relegation threat in 7 teams. And Gimpo sat mid-table. They had their first game at the weekend and they got off to a winning start. You may have seen quite a few things going on around social media of Lee Hak-min and his corner kick, where he managed to plank himself when the referee blew his whistle, and he checked his kick and went straight on his face. So that's certainly worth looking into from the K2 and possibly the highlight of the weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to point out one thing there as well. Like Songnam have drawn the first 2 matches, the only team that's done that. They were so close to promotion last season. They pretty much lost an entire squad, kept the manager, and that's about it. And they've drawn 2 games that they probably would have expected to win, away to Busan and at home to Cheongbuk Cheongju, I think it was. So it's just been I think it was Cheongbuk Cheongju. Anyway, it's been a difficult start for Songnam in mid-table, and it's what we see, unfortunately, regularly here, where you think this club can build on the successes of last season, but they're just not given that opportunity because almost everybody is a free agent at the end of the season in Korea, and they're all gone. I'll let Luke sit this section out just because that he was pampering himself in the Lotte World Tower at the weekend. I only went to one game though. I went to see Anyang versus Jeju. Luke gave a pretty good summary of it. I remember messaging you guys in the first half and saying the Jeju were really impressive. They should have been a couple of goals up at the break. Anyang are struggling at the moment without Bruno Mata, the focal point that they've always had in attack. The big striker who will win headers, chase down lost causes, invoke the high press. They just don't have that at the moment. They're playing with Ivan Jukic, who's a left winger, and Mateus Oliveira up front. So I think they struggled to keep the ball in the Jeju half in the first period, but after the second half they were a lot better. They took the lead because of Mateus's penalty in the 87th minute. Jeju equalised and Mateus scored a great winner at the end. There were 10,500 people at the game. You could see some changes had been made to the Anyang Stadium. I think there's definitely signs there that if they can just get a goal scoring number 9 like they had with Mata, that there is the possibility of this being another good season for them. You could see the regeneration in the squad, like especially in goals. 37-year-old Kim Da-sol, a great player in his own right, has been sort of slowly moved to the side. So the squad was very old last season. It was the oldest squad in K League 1, but I think they're beginning to fix that at the moment. So I'd enjoyed it. It was a good game. 2 decent teams. I'd imagine both teams will probably finish well outside of the relegation zone or not really in danger of going down by the end of the season. What would you like to talk about, Mike?
Well, straight up, it was a historic day over in Bucheon when they played the first ever top flight game after the rise through the ranks over the years. So it's quite exciting to be part of that spectacle. There was a bit of excitement in the air before the game, obviously a kickoff and things. It wasn't quite reflected on the pitch. Daejeon played like a team that were clearly the team more experienced at this level, but Bucheon, did what they had to do. It was somewhat of a turgid affair, but they pushed, they made sure they kept themselves in the contest, and they managed to go ahead from the penalty spot. So actually, incredibly, at that point, Bucheon was sitting on 6 points at the top of the K-League 1, something nobody would have seen, especially if you've seen a lot of the preseason predictions. They couldn't hold on, though, and an injury time equaliser, as Luke told us in the K1 roundup, undid in Bucheon's dream, but still, they've made sure they've come to the K1 table and with an intention to very much sit there. Moving on, I took in my first Ansan game of the season as they hosted Busan. Very positive new outlook for this Ansan team. Very attacking, very in control of the game. They could have probably been 3 or 4 up, frankly speaking. Of course, they went down 3-1 eventually, with Busan taking an early lead early in the second half. They took the lead, Ansan equalising, and then basically in the last 20 minutes, Busan showed a dominance. They forced some amazing saves out of Lee Seung-bin in the Ansan goal, but eventually they ground a win. It's one of those games that could have ended in a 4-4.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. I remember when you showed up actually with 30 minutes ago, you said this could be my first 0-0 of the season. And it ended up being the quintessential K-League match. Both teams to score over 2.5 goals a game. Very rarely you'll see a 0-0 in Korea, and thankfully we didn't see a 0-0 that day. We're just coming towards the end of our show here. Because you didn't get to a game last weekend, Luke, and I know we're going to talk about this in the K-League 1 preview show later on this week, but you are going to a game this weekend. Just very briefly, where are you heading to this coming weekend?
This weekend I'm heading down to Pohang, and I believe that Pohang have updated their away end somewhat. So Incheon will be the first visitors to find out what's new and see what the new facilities are like. I've never been to the ground before, so I'm excited to go down there. I'm taking the train. Hopefully I'll see a few Incheon fans on the way and we can find out what people are expecting and how they feel about the season so far.
That's a great stadium as well. Pohang Schoolyard is definitely one of the best in the country. A minute ago, we do this every week. I think we've just about enough time for it now. Wish I was there. I'm going to go first if you don't mind, because I was so excited for this one. When I saw the headline calling it Daegu's King versus Gwangyang's Jesus, they're of course referring to Cecilia of Daegu and Valdivia of Jeonnam Dragons. This is a pretty tasty matchup. Both Brazilians, both captains. Both teams started with a win to begin their season, but Daegu won 4-2 in the end in front of about 9,500 people. Cecilia did open the scoring. Jeonnam were 2-1 ahead early into the second half, but a couple of other Brazilians then stole the show. Matheus Serafin scored his first goal for Daegu since he moved from the Blue Wings over the winter, before Edgar, the timeless Edgar, came off the bench to score a brace to deliver all 3 points for Daegu. So a big win for Daegu, 4-2 over Jeonnam Dragons. Probably might have felt a little bit like an early title decider, or certainly playoff decider between those two clubs. So I wouldn't have minded being there. I said it would be good. A lot of good players were on the pitch at the Daegu Stadium on over the weekend. So Daegu 4, Jeonnam 2. I wish I were there. Mike, how about yourself?
I've said Cheonang Gimpo, the Lee Hak-min's tumble. That's just one of those things I would remember. Be my top moments of going to football stadiums. That's why you go to games, to see those just one-off crazy moments. So that's my pick this week.
For me, the game I'd like to have gone to would be Anyang. I've never been. There was a great crowd, lots of late drama. It's exactly what you want to see in football. Okay, so yeah, that's the end of our roundup. We've got K-League 1, K-League 2 previews coming up in the next few days. You'll see Mike heading up the K-League 2 preview, me talking about K-League 1 and what to expect this weekend. Just to say, follow us on social media, below the 38th, Instagram, YouTube and Twitter, and we'll see you soon.